Mike. I'm UltiMike on Drupal.org and Twitter and pretty much everywhere else. I am half of Drupal. My wife is the other soul or the other employee of Drupal. We are a Drupal training and consulting company. We have the only long-form Drupal training program of its kind in the world. We actually just graduated 18 more people just last week, and a number of them are here today. I told them not to come to this session because they hear me talk enough. So if I see any of them, I'm kicking them out as well. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about 7 little modules, seven little Drupal 7 modules every site builder should be using. A few years ago, I did a presentation in a number of camps and at a DrupalCon titled 45 Modules in 45 Minutes. And I talked a lot faster. So this is only 7. So this is going to be like a leisurely stroll for me, I think. All right, so this number right here, anybody have any idea what this number represents? Take a stab at it. By the way, if you have a question, you can just shout it out or raise your hand. I like these to be more of a conversation than a, what's that? Modules. What kind of modules? Well, Drupal modules, yeah. No, psych, it's a WordPress talk. Here we go. No, as of 3 or 4 days ago, this is the number of Drupal 7 modules on Drupal.org. That is a lot. Full projects, not counting Sandbox. And this is the classic problem. Oh, there's so many modules that can save me time. I have such big problems. And our problem isn't the fact that there's so many modules. Our problem is the fact that we couldn't possibly be exposed to all 7,467, I think was what the number was. So I'm going to take 7 of those and expose you to them. And then you can thank me later. So this number I kind of pulled out of my butt. And I was trying to figure out what's the average number of modules on a Drupal site. And I kind of thought this might be somewhere in the realm of possibilities. And I had no scientific way of doing it. I didn't do a poll. Actually, what I did was I hopped on IRC a few times over the past couple weeks, and I said, hey, everybody, how many modules are enabled on the site you're currently working on? And I got numbers, so I'm not sure if this is right, but I got numbers like 84, 135, 99, 44, 135, 62, 24, which is tiny, 96, 106, 162. I also looked at Commerce Kickstart. Anybody have any idea how many modules are enabled with Commerce Kickstart out of the box? Yeah. Panoply distribution, which I love and use a lot. Not quite 100, but it'll be 100 by the time you're done with your Panoply site. Drupal Commons. 137. How about Drupal 8, where it stands as of right now? How many modules are enabled by default? Anybody want to take a stab? 40. 40? Close. That's a great number right there. Oh, I thought that, okay. Sites that we've launched recently, 122 and 152. So on average, I think 100 is probably in the ballpark. I'm sure if I asked all of you, I'd get a bunch of sites that were below 100, a bunch of sites that are above 100, and maybe we can average it out and figure out what it is, but then that would I'd never be able to tell you what the 7 modules were if we spent time doing statistics. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to talk about the fact that, if 100 is our number, then probably most of us are familiar with somewhere a little over 1% of those 7,400 modules. And that's, graphically, that's a very small slice of key lime pie that no one wants to eat. We want a much bigger slice of the pie. If we look at Drupal.org's usage stats, and this is kind of some screenshots from the Drupal.org usage page that shows all of the Drupal modules ranked by order of usage, how many times they're used. And these numbers are a little bit false because it only is able to track modules if the website has the update status or update manager module enabled. So I know this is small, it's not really meant for you guys to be able to read, but here's the top 100 modules, and if you were to come up to the screen and read it, most of these modules, if you're a Drupal 7 developer, you've probably heard of. Maybe not all of them. But holy crap, what about the other 98.66% of the modules? Other than these top 100. We could probably make our jobs a lot easier. We could probably deliver better sites. We could probably save a bunch of time if we knew a little bit larger percentage, if we were familiar with more of these modules, which is one of the big reasons why I encourage anybody who's involved in Drupal to subscribe to Drupal Planet or visit drupal.org/planet. It's basically an aggregator of Drupal blog posts from around the web. It's curated, so there's it's a very high signal to noise ratio, I guess is the best way of saying it. And personally, this is where I hear about a lot of the modules that I'm about to show you, as well as through meetups and just IRC and talking to my friends in the community. So if we agree that we're probably all familiar with at least 100 modules, there's only 7,300 left. So I'm going to start with just a few of them. And I've gotten ahead of myself again, but how do we learn about those 98% of the modules? Well, I learned about them meetups, Drupal Planet I mentioned, hanging out on IRC. A lot of times you don't even have to participate in IRC. Just leave it open, and when you have a minute, just glance over and see what's going on. It might interest you. Drupal camps like this, Drupal cons, groups.drupal.org, either your local geographic group or a special interest group. There's always little tips on there about, hey, I found this really cool module that really helps out librarians. And then, of course, Drupal.org forums, issue queues, everywhere else on there. So there's a lot of places to be exposed to all these modules, but you just can't sit back and wait for it to happen. You actually have to participate in the community in order to learn about all of these modules. So today I'm going to get you started with 7 of them. So less than 1/10 of 1%. So go ahead. Okay, you're welcome. All right, but none of them are in the top 100, and none of them are in the top 200 of most used modules. So I'm looking to dive a little bit deeper. There's a couple that are in the low 200 to 500 range, and there's a few that are in the thousands range, which I think is ridiculous because those should be some of the most used modules. And hopefully after, at noon, I guess is when I'm done, you'll be downloading at least a few of these 7 modules, which I think are, for me, I use them on almost every site I build at this point. So let's go. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to show you 7 slides for each of the 7 modules, and then I'm going to do a quick demo of each of the 7 modules to kind of show you them in action. So the first one is security review. How many people are Drupal security experts in the room? Exactly. Right. This is why you should use this module. It's ridiculously easy to use. You download it, you install it, you enable it, and then you get a new report. That's a security report. And it basically just shows you some things that you should probably take a look at. Make sure that different areas of your site are actually secure. And it's kind of like the module update page. If there's a problem, it will be red. If you're cool, it will be green. And if it's red, it'll give you a little link for some details on how to make it green. There's no reason why anybody who has a production site out there should not be using this module. Max length, completely different module. So here, let me go back. That one, so security review, rank 204. So it just made my cut there. And as I mentioned, it's exposed if you're using the admin menu module, which I use on every site as well, it's exposed in the reports menu under security review. All right, so max length, usage rank of 295. And what it does is it sets the maximum length of any field on any form. Now, Drupal kind of already does this for us, right? Whenever we add a text field to a profile or a content type or a vocabulary, we can set the length of that text field. And that length is actually the length of that field in the database. So it's impossible to enter in more characters than what we set that up as. So the advantage of using max length is it gives the user feedback on how much of that 200 characters they have left to go. It also, the other nice feature that it does is it limits the title field. Because by default, the title field, Drupal just gives it to you, and that's set to 255 whether or not you want it at 255. The max length module allows you to limit the title field to 100 characters or 50 characters or whatever makes sense, so your authors can't write titles that scroll 3 lines or 4 lines or something like that. Again, ridiculously easy, super stable. If there's any type of text limiting that you need on your site, this is a great module because it gives authors feedback. It's like biofeedback for authors. View unpublished. Anybody who does anything with editorial workflow, I don't understand how people can not already know about this module. The big win that this module gives you is that it allows you to give different roles permission to view unpublished nodes of a particular content type or per content type. So by default, what does Drupal core give you? It gives you the ability to administer content. So if you give that to an editor role, they can view published or unpublished nodes of all content types. But let's say you have a user role that is just your blog editor, and you want to give them the ability just to publish and unpublish blog content type, or blog nodes, or view unpublished blog nodes. You can't do that with Drupal core. That's what this module is for. It's commonly used with the override node options module, and that gives you kind of fine-grained control of the publish checkbox. So you can give a particular role access to the publish checkbox on a per content type basis. So if you're involved with editorial workflow with a bunch of different content types and you need more granular control, this is the module for you. And it's exposed strictly on the permissions page. Yes, sir.
Does that work along with workflow moderation and things like that?
I don't use. Okay, thank you.
I used Workbench and I installed that, and it made my content page that my users could not view the unpublished on the regular content page, and I uninstalled it, and it still has some unpublished.
All right, so let me, for the recording, the question was, does this module work with the workflow module? And the answer was no. Workbench. Okay, so the question was, does it work with Workbench? Work with Workbench moderation, and I don't know the answer, but someone else said no. So, good to go? Oh, really? So this module is the problem?
The two together are
They don't like each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spent 2 days debugging the site, trying to
Okay. I'm not a big fan of Workbench, so that's why. So, anyway. Okay. All right, let's move on then to Autocomplete Deluxe. This is one of those modules, I don't understand why this isn't part of Drupal core yet. This makes tag fields, tagging term reference fields, so much nicer. A prettier interface, well, just a prettier interface, basically. Usage rank 591, and it provides an alternate term reference field widget. So when you go to add a term reference field to your content type, you don't want to use the default tagging one that you get with Drupal core. You want to use the autocomplete, or you don't want to use the default autocomplete one widget that you get with Drupal core. You want to use the Autocomplete Deluxe because it's deluxe. And if it's deluxe, it must be better. So masked input. So this is way up there. This is up over 1,700 in usage rank. I found this because I was frustrated that the phone module does not have a Drupal 7 stable release. Anybody used a phone module before? It's a field module that provides a phone text or a phone field that you can add to content types or profile fields, and the phone module is actually really cool. For Drupal 6, it's really cool because you can pick the country, and then based on the country, it reformats your phone number properly with the parentheses in the right place and the dashes and everything. When that wasn't working for Drupal 7, I needed another solution, and I came across masked input, which is a really slick little solution. It uses a jQuery plugin called masked input, and it allows you to define an input mask for your text field, fields. So it's much easier to demonstrate than to talk about, so we'll see that one in a minute. It's exposed as, again, an alternate widget for text fields. The first time I showed this module to someone, that they were saying, so where does the name Footable come from? I'm like, no, it's foo table. So it's a great module. Hopefully everyone's building responsive sites these days. For me, the biggest pain in the butt with responsive sites was tabular data. Because those tables always want to break out, and ruin your display on a mobile device. The food table module basically gives you a responsive solution to tabular table data. Wish I could say that word. It is a view format plugin, so you create your view. Instead of your view format being a table, your view format is a foo table. And then you can set it up so that depending if the user is viewing that table on a mobile device or a tablet or a desktop, the table renders itself in different ways. Super cool module. The demo will knock your socks off. And the term case module, again, combined with Autocomplete Deluxe, I don't know why it's not in Drupal core yet. And look, the rank is up, over 2,700. I actually found this module because I started writing a custom module for a client to do this exact same thing. And I got about 2 hours into it, and I'm like, hold on, this is nuts. Because someone else has had to have this problem before. And the problem I was trying to solve is, with a tagging type vocabulary, one person might type in the word Florida with a capital F. Another person might type in the word Florida with a lowercase f. Drupal core considers those two different terms. That's crazy town. So term case allows you to set up a vocabulary to automatically make all terms lowercase, or make them uppercase, or capitalize the first term. This is like the common sense module, if you ask me. And then the best part about this module is if you already have a vocabulary with 6,000 terms, it has a magic checkbox. I don't know if you can see it on the bottom there. Convert the existing terms in this vocabulary. It's fantastic. Every site that I have a tagging vocabulary has this module and Autocomplete Deluxe enabled. No brainer. I've never had any complaints. I've never had a client go, why do we need that? It's, of course we need that type stuff. So let's take a look at some of these. Alrighty, so I have to switch things so you can actually see my screen. That would be nice. There we go. All right, so to save time, oh boy, all right, so we're already in a responsive mode here since the screen is not that wide. Let me just see if I can't change this, make this a little bit wider without the monitor freaking out. It's a little bit better, right? Oh, not revert. But if I revert here, am I good to go? How about confirm? All right, let's try this one more time. Here goes all the time I saved by pre-enabling all the modules. Confirm, confirm. Let's see, are we getting out of? Yeah, there we go. Okay, very good. Okay, so here's our site. It's a demo site just on my local machine. I've gone ahead and enabled all the modules. So let's start from the top. Let's start with security review. So it's enabled. I come to reports. I have a security review page. And you have to run the reports. I've already run them, so I don't want to waste time running them again, but hopefully you can figure out how to run it. There's a button that says to run. But here are the results from a few days ago. And actually, let me rerun them because I did make one change, so you can watch them run. I want to show you something that's broken and then show you me fixing it and then show you how it shows up fixed. There we go. So we have 2 errors on this site. It's a local site on this laptop right here, so I'm not too concerned about the writable part of it yet. If this was on a production site, I would be much more concerned. But this other one, errors are written to the screen. On a dev site, you actually want this. On your production site, you don't want this. You don't want to give anybody any clues what's happening behind the scenes, because that could actually be a security issue. That can provide them information into your back end that could help them create a vector and to hack your site. So writing out errors is probably, pretty much a no-no on a production site. So how do we fix this? Well, this is actually a Drupal core thing. And if I remember correctly, configuration, development, logging, and errors, right there. There's actually a Drupal setting, error messages to display. Again, on my local, I want to see all messages. If there's something going on with a PHP error in a custom module, heck yeah, I want to know about it. On production, no way. So you change that, we go back to our report, hit run checklist. So in my opinion, this module and this review is just as important as your update modules page. That shows you which modules are green, which ones are yellow, which ones are red. And you can see now that we fixed that, we're down to one red that we don't have to worry about. It's stupid easy to use. The hard part comes sometimes when these are red and you have to figure out, for me, anything dealing with permissions is, all right, well, there goes my afternoon type of issue. But that's security review. I think, and I'm going to preach a little bit, but every responsible developer should be using this module. And you don't want to be an irresponsible developer.
Do you generally keep that enabled in production?
No. It's one of those modules, I turn it on, just like I don't keep update module enabled on production. I turn it on, I run it, I look, I turn it off. I'm pretty anal about that with, like Views UI, Context UI, all those modules. It's as few modules as I can have enabled on production. So max length, let's move on. So max length module, it has a library you have to install separately, so it needs the libraries module. But as you can see, it's already enabled. So this exposes itself in two places. So let's look at our article content type. When we have max length enabled, down here, unfortunately they make the name a little bit different, which I'm a fan of things being consistent, so when they add the JS, I'm not a big fan of that, but this actually affects the title field. It's not super obvious that this affects the title field, but if you want to set the title field to something less than 255 characters, we can do it right here. So let's say we only want the title to be 100 characters long. We can actually change the message that's output to the author as they're entering the title if we wanted to. The default's pretty good though. Let's go ahead and save that content type. And now if we go to add a new article, again, it's a dead simple thing to use, but if you have to limit the length of text fields, if you can provide user feedback, that makes a much nicer experience. So how many more characters do I have left? So 60 I have left, so I can do much longer, yes?
Does that work with web form fields too?
That is a good question. I don't believe so. I've never tried it. I'm pretty sure it is a field API thing. But if you want to check it out in the next 15 minutes and let me know, I will answer your question once you give me the answer. See how that works? Because we're community. So this also works for fields that you add, obviously. So if we want to add a new, call it a tweet field, that's going to be text. And obviously, you can set the max length to 140 here, and this is that hard database setting I was talking about. But, oops, sorry about that. When you have the max length module enabled, just check this. You're not allowed, you don't get to put a value in here because it uses the length we just specified of 140. So this checkbox basically just turns on our message. So hit Save Settings. And now again, if we go and we add a new article, down here we have our tweet field, and as we type, it gives some feedback on how many characters do we have left for that field. Again, stupid easy to use, provides really valuable feedback.
It obviously works on the body field. Does it work on the summary of the body field as well?
I don't know, I haven't tried that. The question is, does it work on the summary field? And there's another question, does it work on web forms? So I think I'm 0 for 3 on your questions so far. So please, some easier questions. I need to get my average up. So, is it easy? Okay. Does it work on meta, like from the meta tags module? And now I'm 0 for 4. Hope you feel better. Man, this is a hard group. All right, let's move on. Sweating now. View unpublished module. Again, I've gone ahead and I've enabled it. So where does this module expose itself? Strictly on the permissions page. So if we come down here to the nodes section, Drupal gives us, we have view own unpublished, but for an editor, that's not very helpful. What we basically have is we have this big honking Thor's hammer size permission. That's, all content types. You can administer them all. So there's no way for us to give access to a role for just one content type. So view unpublished, down here we have a section where we can, give permission to view any unpublished content or view any unpublished content for a particular content type. So very handy when you have editorial workflows, and it's just that simple. Any easy questions about that one? Other than workbench related? Yes.
A little bit workbench related, because you caveat that if you're not a big fan of workbench.
Yes.
But if you have lots and lots and lots of content about it, what do you use for the workbench? That is compatible with,
I haven't been in a situation where I've had to build a site with super complicated workflows. So I tend to not use Workbench, or even, I've used Workflow module for Drupal 6 sites, but I actually kind of prefer to roll my own with this, override node options, custom views, and there was one other thing I had to tip my tongue there. Oh, rules, obviously. I used the rules module for the notification part of it. So when a node gets submitted, it automatically is unpublished. It notifies, rules module notifies the editor, and I have a special view set up for a particular editor to see nodes of a certain content type and things like that. So that's kind of how I roll my own. Okay, I'm 1 for 5. Rock on. All right, Autocomplete Deluxe. So I'm going to do this one and term case at the same time because they both have to do with taxonomy. So again, these are not big, complicated modules. Term case is a single module. Autocomplete Deluxe is a single module. Enable them. Go to your vocabulary. I'm just going to mess around with the Drupal core default tags vocabulary. And term case shows up right here on the vocabulary edit page. Lower that. There we go. So do you want to convert terms? Heck yeah, make them all lowercase. That way someone could yell at me with all caps Florida, and that's the same as someone with upper F, lowercase Florida, and someone who enters all lowercase. This converts them all. If my vocabulary already exists and has 3,000 terms, this will go through and recase them appropriately. Hit save. You can see I have 6 terms in there already. They've been updated, so we'll see how this one works in a second. The other side of this, or that's term case, Autocomplete Deluxe, just as easy to use. Oops, let's go to our article content type, manage fields. Drupal core gives us a tags field on our article content type by default. Oops. Click on that. Oh, actually we want widget type. We're going to change it from Drupal core's autocomplete term widget to Autocomplete Deluxe. This is where this module exposes itself. Hit continue. So now if we go to add a new article, you can see it looks a little bit different. It's a little bit fatter. But now we can start typing Florida, and Atlanta, and Georgia, and Drupal Camp. Oops. That's my one complaint about Autocomplete Deluxe. When you use the tab key, it doesn't know what you're talking about. Unless you, I think if you highlight it. Yeah, if you highlight it first, then it'll work. But you can see Autocomplete Deluxe, it basically makes it prettier. It gives us these little X's. It does some little theming. It just makes a nicer experience for people adding tags. And what the term case is going to do is when I save this node, because we set it to all lowercase, Atlanta will be all lowercase. Georgia will be all lowercase. Drupal Camp. Oh, so let me redo that one. So it's Drupal Camp. There we go. I want to make sure it's uppercase this way. So let's do a DCATL term test. Hit save. And you can see term case did its job. Everything is lowercase. So it kind of reduces the friction for authors. These two modules reduce the friction, and it's a lot nicer because now if you have a taxonomy term listing page and you click on Drupal Camp to see that page and everything with that tag, it's capturing all the different ways to write out the word Drupal Camp with different capital letters in different places. Alrighty, where are we at now? So Autocomplete Deluxe, masked input. So let's say we wanted to add a phone number field to our article content type. Structure, content types, articles, manage fields. So Drupal core, we don't have a whole lot of options here. We could do an integer, but then you wouldn't be able to add dashes or parentheses, whatever you want. So I think most people, if you're like me, just use a plain old text field to capture a phone number. And rather than using the text field widget, this is where the masked input module just exposes itself, right here as a widget for text fields. So you select that one, hit save. Phone numbers probably don't need to be, I guess, more than 50 characters, let's say. Probably a lot less than that, but let's set it to 50. And the documentation for the masked input module isn't the best. It's getting better. I actually had one of my students contribute a bunch of new documentation to it. So hopefully that will be, it was actually in the form of a patch to the module, so the README gets updated. Hopefully that gets committed soon. But while there is a configuration option somewhere in here for, let's see, user interface, yeah, masked input, you don't really need to use this unless you're doing something really super fancy. All you really need is what's here. And it basically tells you if you want to allow the user to enter in a character, use A in the mask. If you want the user to only be able to enter a number, use 9 in the mask. If you want the user to be able to enter a letter or a number, use an asterisk. So here we just define what's the format, what's the mask for this field. Well, let's say we want to input, you can kind of see I've done this before. We want to make sure phone numbers are input in this format. Parenthesis, 3 digits, close parenthesis, a space, 3 digits, a dash, 4 digits. So you enter in your mask like that. Save settings. Add content. So now, when I click in the phone field, you can see it's kind of already helping me out a little bit. But the nice thing is I'm trying, you can hear me, right? I'm trying to put in letters. It's not letting me. But if we do, 212, 555, 1212, I don't have to put, I didn't have to type the dashes, I didn't have to type the parens, I just type the numbers in and it formats it correctly. If you're really anal retentive, like this guy, you love this. Because I like consistent data. Everybody likes consistent data. When you're printing out a table of phone numbers, and you have some phone numbers that have dots, some have dashes, some have nothing, some have this, it makes me crazy. So this solves that problem. You can even go further with your mask of this type and do an extension, a space, ext, dot, and leave that, where they can leave that blank if they want. I've only ever used this module for phone numbers. Someone else the other day suggested social security numbers, and I said, okay, only if you have like 3 server sysadmin guys behind you, making sure those social security numbers are actually secure in your database. I'm sure there's other applications, but to this point, I've only ever used it for phone numbers.
Can you do multiple masks for one field? So like obviously if you needed an international number different?
Yeah. Not that I know of. Nope.
I got a deal for you.
Let me ask, the question was, can you use multiple masks for a single field? The answer was no. I just want to make sure the recording gets it.
I've got one question for it, but I got 2 answers also.
All right, so that'll get my batting average up quite a bit. All right, I like that.
So the one question is, can you have like optional things, so like the extension be optional, so that you could add it or not there?
That one I don't know.
All right, here's your 2 answers.
I thought I was prepared. I practiced. I didn't get any of these questions in the run-throughs with other people, but
Okay, so the 2 answers.
which means you guys are much smarter than everybody else.
Max length
Yes.
does not right now work with web form,
Okay.
although you might possibly be able to do it with custom.
All right, so max length does not work with web form.
And it does not work on the summary.
It does not work on the summary. Okay.
But again, you could probably do custom.
Right, so I will throw out a shout out to a module that does the same thing as web form, but actually uses Drupal's form API, called the entity form module. So entity form is a lot like web form, but it doesn't have its own widgets. It uses Drupal form fields. So I know it'll work if you're using entity form instead of web form. Entity form. Yeah, here, well, if I have Wi-Fi, I might have Wi-Fi. GPN. If it loads, we'll see it. Here's the URL, I can tell you that. Question? You already burned me on a hard one, so. Okay.
It's starting to work with the meta tags, not perfectly,
Okay.
but you can add the limitation in the newer.
So one of the maintainer of meta tag is here. He works for Media Karen. I don't think is Damien here in this room? All right, so you could probably find him in the hallway and tackle him and get the full integration if you want. So really, really good guy. Over here, question? I don't believe so because I believe all of these, that module requires Drupal's field API, and web form implements its own fields. It doesn't use a field API.
So would it work with entity form?
Yes, yes, yeah. That's the big win, in my opinion, of entity form, where it leverages field API. So, all right, if I have time later, I'll pull up the entity form page. So a good friend of mine is the maintainer of entity form, and now I always tease him about entity form, and now I'm going to have to go back to him and tell him that all you were interested in it and owe him a beer or something, I'm sure. So, all right, so I think we're down to one more, right? Masked input, we covered term case, so footable. I have to call it footable now because I think it's funny. So foo table. So again, simple module to install. Foo table provides views integration for the jQuery foo table plugin. Now this module is relatively new. I don't even think there's an official release. I think it's still in beta. There are a couple of rough edges. My biggest complaint about it, actually I have two, and I'll show them to you in a second. But I'm willing to bet if those features aren't going to be in soon, the next time I have to use this module, I might just go ahead and create the patch and add them because I need them in there at this point. So you basically create just a regular view, and here's about as regular as you can get. It's based on nodes. I'm not filtering by anything other than published. So we're showing nodes of all content types. I'm just sorting by the default. I have a bunch of fields. The difference is that my format is foo table. When you enable the module, you get a new option. Instead of using table, now you have foo table option. And then in the settings look a lot like the regular table format, but then when you scroll down, you've got the foo table settings. So this expandable column, this is kind of the secret sauce. This is the big wow factor for this module. So I'm just going to leave it set on title, which is our first column. But then we have these other settings. And I've already set this one up because it's a little bit tedious if you have a lot of fields. But basically collapsed columns. So which columns do you want to hide depending on the responsive mode? So for the title field, we never want that hidden. So we don't check phone or tablet. So in other words, we want the title field to be visible on a mobile device, a tablet, or a desktop. But then when we're on a phone, on a small screen, we're basically going to hide every other field. The node ID, the post date, published, all of these. And then when we're on a tablet, tablet's a little bit wider, so we have more room. So we're, in addition to showing the title, we're also going to see the node ID and the post date. But then these other three, we're going to hide. So on a mobile device, that table's 1 column wide. On a tablet device, that table's 3 columns wide. On a desktop, that is 6 columns wide. And the brilliant part about this module is the data from the columns that are being hidden is still accessible. So there's other responsive table solutions, but this I think is the best one that I've seen so far that still gives you access to all of your data. So let's go to the demo page. Oh, you know what I got to do? Okay. This morning I changed one thing and now it's burning me. Foo table demo. I want to hide my sidebars here real quick so that that table can go to full width, because right now you can only see 3 columns, so it's only in tablet mode right now because I have to hide those blocks. There we go. Oh, and my screen is still not wide enough. How about if I do this? There we go. Okay. So now, oh boy. 6 columns. Okay, so we're in full desktop mode here. As we start shrinking down to tablet size, we're down to 3 columns. Well, how do we see the data from those other 3 columns? And this is complaint number 1 for this module. You can't see it, but if you tap on the title, it opens up, and it shows you the data from those other columns. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah. So complaint number 1 is every time we've implemented this, we've added a little plus sign kind of icon saying, hey, user, tap this because something magical happens. And similarly, if we go down to mobile, on a mobile device, we see our 1 column, we click on it, we still have access to all of our data. That is the definition of badass right there. So I don't care what you guys think, that's awesome. So complaint number 2 about this module is there's no way from the user interface to set the breakpoints. Meaning I have no control from the user interface to say at what point do we go from tablet to mobile. This is hard, this width right around here is hard coded in the foo table module. Kind of silly. But it's a relatively easy patch. If it's not in the queue, I haven't checked. It will be soon. There's a way around it with a little bit of jQuery magic. But that and the little icon, yeah, those 2 things, and this module is good to go.
Is it easy to spot
Is it easy to spot where to change it? Yeah, you can hack food table module if you want. That's the easiest way. But then a kitten dies. And that's on you. You can actually write a custom module. So, now we're talking about writing a module and implementing some jQuery that overrides it, blah, 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 blah. I've hacked the module. Okay.
So food table is, they have their own website and stuff like that.
Yeah, food table is a jQuery plugin, but there's just like, jQuery cycle, there's a Drupal module that integrates that plugin with Drupal. So I've got a couple more slides. We'll just finish up here and we'll go eat. Okay, demo. So some final numbers before we wrap up. I'm a kind of a little bit of a statistics nerd. So all that project usage stuff I was telling you about, the most used modules, that's right here, drupal.org/project/usage. It's important to remember, it displays the usage of all Drupal modules, not sandbox modules, all. That's 13,240 modules. And unfortunately, you can't filter it by version. So that's all Drupal modules. So if you look here, this is that same slide as before, but number 17 is CCK. Those of you who are around in Drupal 6 days, you probably use CCK. It's still number 17. So there's a lot of Drupal 6 sites out there still. So here's what I think is kind of interesting. And I'm going to kind of expand on this in I write the back page for Drupal Watchdog magazine, and I like to put stats on there. So I think in my next column in Drupal Watchdog, I'm going to dive into these numbers a little bit more. But out of those 13,000, only, I think it's about 20% of them have more than 500 reported installs. There's a lot of those 13,000 modules that have been abandoned, that are for Drupal 4.7, that are duplicates, that are almost like one-off modules that are just for a really narrow use case. So out of those 13,000, there's a lot that I'm not going to say you don't have to worry about, but there's a lot of kind of dead wood out there. But there are, as I think I've shown you, there's a bunch of hidden gems in there. And hidden gem modules like this make great meetup topics. So if you go to a local Drupal meetup and you know about one of these modules, that's a presentation. Do a demo, expose these modules, because the more people using them, the more people interacting in the issue queue, the better those modules are going to get. And that will save us all a lot of time. So I will go ahead, I lied about not telling anybody else. I'm going to go ahead and tweet out those 7 modules probably after lunch using this hashtag. So if you guys know of any hidden modules or any of these modules that you use a lot that you don't think a whole lot of other people know about, tweet them out at the same place. I think it would be fun to get a little bit of a discussion going there. It's 11:59. Rock on. Thank you very much.